The tycoon gave Marcus a book and told him not to open it. That was 14 months ago. In those 14 months, Marcus went from $14 an hour to $154,000 a year. Today, he finally opens it. Here's what nobody tells you about Think and Grow Rich. The people who get the most from it don't read it first. They live it first. Then they read it. And when they do, every page feels like a description of something they already know. Because they do. They just didn't have the language for it yet. Marcus spent 14 months being guided through every major principle in that book by people who never once mentioned its name. He felt the belief walls before Chapter 7 named them. He ran the 30-day experiment before Chapter 4 explained why it worked. He built the $5 million system before Chapter 9 gave it a framework. The book didn't change Marcus's life. The experiences did. The book just explained what had already happened. And that distinction, between reading a principle and living one, is the thing Napoleon Hill understood about wealth that almost nobody talks about. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why the sequence matters, and why most people who read this book get nothing from it, while the people who live it first get everything. He walked into the coffee shop at 6:48 on a Tuesday morning. The woman with the notebook was already there, leather notebook open, coffee half finished. The same unhurried stillness she had carried in the back of his rideshare on the night everything started. She looked at him for a moment before saying anything. "You look different," she said. "I feel different," he said honestly. He sat down and told her everything. The numbers he had run that morning at his kitchen table, the ones he used to dread doing, the ones that now told a completely different story. Day job, $52,000. Consulting practice, $8,500 a month, $102,000 annualized. Total income, $154,000. Monthly savings rate, $3,200. Gap account balance, $28,800. 14 months earlier, the same calculation had produced $52,000, 3 jobs, 70 hours a week, and $200 a month going into an account that felt like a consolation prize. He hadn't gotten lucky. He hadn't found a shortcut nobody else had access to. He hadn't stumbled into an opportunity that fell from the sky. He had changed how he thought, and everything else had followed with a logic that felt almost inevitable in retrospect. The day job that used to feel like a ceiling now felt like a platform. She listened the way she always had, completely, without performance, without waiting for her turn to speak. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she asked him something he hadn't expected. What she said next would reframe everything Marcus thought he understood about the previous 14 months. And it started with a question so simple he almost missed what it was actually asking. "Did you ever notice," she said slowly, "that every person who helped you said some version of the same thing?" Marcus thought about it. He thought about the tycoon in that early morning office. 2 coffees already on the table. The patience of someone who had learned everything the hard way and stopped being angry about the cost. The 3 belief walls. The notebook with labor on one side and leverage on the other. We don't reward effort. We reward design. He thought about Diane, the consultant she had introduced him to. The 5-step process map. System scale. People don't. The $5 million projection drawn across a fresh page. The quiet certainty of someone who had already watched that projection come true 3 times. He thought about the woman sitting across from him now, in the back of his car, at this table, on the phone at moments when the doubt got heavy enough to feel permanent. "The thinking comes first," Marcus said slowly. "Every single time. The money is just the evidence that the thinking changed." "The tycoon said it," she confirmed. "Diane said it. I said it that first night in your car. We all said it differently. Same idea every time." Marcus looked at her. "Where does it come from?" She didn't answer immediately. She looked at his bag. He understood. He reached in and placed it on the table between them. The same weathered copy of Think and Grow Rich the tycoon had slid across his desk months ago. He had carried it every day since. He had not opened it once. Until now, he had thought that restraint was his own. Looking at her face, he realized she had known exactly how long it would take. "You've been waiting for this moment," he said. It wasn't a question. She almost smiled. "Open it," she said. Now here is where this story takes a turn most people don't see coming. Marcus had spent 14 months living every principle in that book without knowing any of them had a name. What she showed him next didn't just explain the past 14 months. It exposed something about the way wealth is actually built that almost nobody is willing to say out loud. He opened to the first page. Then she walked him through it. "Napoleon Hill spent 20 years studying the wealthiest, most successful people in the world," she said. "Not their industries, not their strategies, not their timing or their connections or their luck. He wanted to know what they had in common at the level of thinking, before any external result, before any visible success. What was happening inside the minds of people who built wealth, that simply wasn't happening inside the minds of people who didn't." "And?" Marcus asked. "They all started with a thought, not a wish, not a hope, not a vague intention to do better someday. A specific, directed, burning thought about exactly what they wanted and precisely why they wanted it. A thought so clear and so consistent that it shaped every decision they made, including most of the decisions they weren't even conscious of making." She turned to the first chapter. "The tycoon showing you your 3 belief walls. That's chapter 7. Faith. The principle that your beliefs don't just describe your reality. They create it. You lived that chapter for 6 years before anyone named it for you. Marcus felt something shift. The 30-day experiment I gave you. That's chapters 2 and 4. Desire and autosuggestion. The deliberate redirection of what your mind searches for. You didn't find Patricia because you got lucky. You found her because you had trained your attention to look for a specific kind of evidence. Diane's 5-step process map. That's chapters 7 and 9. Organized planning and the mastermind. The principle that a single definite purpose pursued through a documented system compounds in ways that hourly effort never can. She showed you the 10-year math. Hill wrote the philosophy behind it 87 years ago. Marcus turned the pages slowly. Every chapter was something he had already lived. Every principle was something a mentor had shown him in practice before the book could show it to him in theory. He looked up. You didn't teach me any of this, he said slowly. None of you did. You just arranged the experiences so I would discover it myself. She said nothing, which was its own kind of answer. Stay with this. Because what Marcus understood in that moment is the thing most people who read Think and Grow Rich completely miss. And it's the reason the book works for some people and does absolutely nothing for others. Why didn't you just give me this the first night? He asked. She looked at him steadily. Because a book you read before you're ready to receive it is just words on a page. You needed to live the principles before you could understand them. You needed to feel the belief walls before the tycoon named them. You needed to run the 30-day experiment before you could see why it worked. You needed to build the system before Diane's framework would mean anything to you. She paused. Most people read Think and Grow Rich and feel inspired for a week. Then they go back to exactly what they were doing before. Not because the book is wrong, because they read it as information. You lived it as experience. Now when you read it, every page will feel like something you already know. Because you do. You learned all of it. The hard way. Slowly. In the right order. She leaned forward. That's what Hill never stated directly. The book doesn't teach you the principles. The book gives you the language for principles you can only learn by living them. The sequence matters. The living comes first. The understanding follows. Most people reverse the order. They read first. They wait for the understanding to produce the experience. It never does. Not because they aren't smart enough. Because that's not how it works. Marcus looked at the open page in his hands. I didn't change because I read a book, he said quietly. I changed because I was guided through experiences that made the book inevitable. The book was never the beginning. He looked up. The book was always the explanation. She held his gaze for a moment. Now, she said, you understand it. She finished her coffee and gathered her notebook. Then she paused before standing. You're not the same person who picked me up 14 months ago, she said. No, he agreed. Good, she said simply. That was always the point. She left him sitting there with an old book and $28,800 in a Gap account and a consulting practice growing faster than he could manage alone. And a question he was already beginning to answer. Who was he going to show this to next? The book that contains every principle every mentor in this playlist taught Marcus is linked in the description below. Think and Grow Rich. Napoleon Hill. First published 1937. It has been read by more self-made millionaires than almost any other book written in the last 100 years. Not because it's magic, because it's a mirror. And depending on where you are in your own thinking right now, it will either feel like a revelation or like confirmation of something you already knew. Both are exactly where you're supposed to be. The link is in the description. Start there. The rest follows. If you're not following Tycoon Logic, you're probably still waiting for the right book or the right mentor or the right moment to start. But here's what Marcus learned across 14 months and 5 conversations. The book doesn't come first. The thinking does. Change the thinking. The book will tell you what you've already built. Subscribe to Tycoon Logic, because the next series starts where this one ended. And the question Marcus asked himself as he sat in that coffee shop. Who is he going to show this to next? That question has an answer. It might be you.